Landon and I had been secretly dating for 6 years. We were finally ready to make it public. I was full of excitement, planning a small family gathering as a surprise, but just as I stepped outside, I heard familiar voices drifting over from next door. Someone laughed and said, "Landon Steele, your first love is coming back. What are you going to do with the stand-in sister?" He did not reply. The silence grew awkward, and another voice chimed in with amusement. "Gotta hand it to Landon. He really knows how to play it. Even the heiress of the Norris family fell for him. 6 years of being doted on like a loyal pup. Not bad. Now Kayla Morgan is back, acting like a pure little flower, already asking you to celebrate her birthday, if you show up with your stand-in girlfriend. Do you think she'll regret not locking you down earlier?" The next day, just as they said, Landon brought me to Kayla's birthday party. He acted affectionate, played the perfect boyfriend. But when Kayla suddenly burst into tears and ran out, he shoved me aside and chased after her without a second thought. Soaked in wine and covered in bruises, I went home. Something in me snapped, and I climbed into the attic he had always kept locked, his private sanctuary. What I saw made my blood run cold. The entire wall was covered in photographs of him and Kayla, their memories, their smiles, their past. My heart went still. I picked up the phone and called my brother, who lived abroad. "Brother," I said quietly, "about the engagement, I've made up my mind. I agree." There was a brief pause on the other end, then his worried voice came through the line. "Stella, did something happen?" That familiar concern made my chest tighten, my nose stung. I nearly cried. What could possibly happen to me? I forced a laugh. "It's just that, even the neighbor's dog has had 2 litters by now, and I'm still single. It's getting embarrassing." He chuckled, his tone lightening. "That's the spirit." Then he suddenly paused. "Wait, wasn't your neighbor Landon? He's been scared of dogs since he was little. What's he doing raising any?" My voice caught. I had not expected him to remember that. Thankfully, he did not press me further. He changed the subject. "So, when are you coming back? Why don't you meet the guy first before making a decision?" I quickly replied, "No need. If you and Dad approve, I trust you. Go ahead with the wedding arrangements. I'll finish things up here and come home soon." "All right." He hesitated, then added, "Do you want to invite Landon to the wedding? I heard his little white flower is back in town, maybe his next in line for marriage." So everyone knew he had been waiting for her. Everyone but me. I lowered my head, blinking hard to hold back the tears. "No, we had a falling out." He sounded surprised. "What happened?" "Because of their dog," I said quickly. Right at that moment, I heard footsteps outside the door. I hung up the phone in a flash. When I looked up, I met Landon's amused eyes. "What dog?" he asked. "Who are you talking to?" "My brother," I said calmly. "We were talking about your dog." He frowned. "I do not have a dog." A second later, he caught on to my meaning. Instead of getting angry, he laughed and pounced on me, pushing me down onto the sofa. "Oh, I'm the dog, am I? Then what are you? My little bitch." I tried to push him away, but he grabbed my hand and pressed it to his waist. "Is this what you like? That firm dog waist?" He leaned in close, his breath brushing against my face, lips nearly touching mine. What used to make my heart race now only filled me with discomfort and disgust, as I struggled. His shirt collar slipped slightly, revealing a fresh set of bite marks on his collarbone. My leg brushed against the edge of the table. The injury from last night, still raw, throbbed sharply again. The pain was so intense that tears welled in my eyes and spilled down my cheeks. The moment Landon saw me cry, his expression changed. "Stella, what's wrong? Did I hurt you?" He quickly sat me up, looking me over in a panic. Then he saw it, the bloody scrapes running along my calf. His voice trembled as he spoke again. "How did this happen? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you call me?" As if he had forgotten everything that happened at the party the night before, as if Kayla's birthday and everything he had done had vanished from his memory. I sat in silence, unsure whether I should speak, whether I should tear away the mask of tenderness he wore so convincingly. Landon gently kissed my forehead and said with a soothing voice, "There now, no more tears. Let me put some medicine on that." He stood up and walked over to get the first aid kit, still speaking as if nothing was wrong. "You really do not know how to take care of yourself, do you? What would you do without me?" I stared at his back, motionless. Yes, what would I do without him? I had chased after him for 22 years, for 6 of those, we had been inseparable, but Landon, what I wanted was never the illusion you offered, I wanted you, the real you, not this carefully constructed dream. That night, I could not sleep. Woken by a nightmare in the middle of the night, I slipped out of his arms and sat barefoot on the window seat, gazing up at the moon. At some point, I must have drifted off. Because I woke with a start when Landon gently lifted me into his arms. He smiled at me, half exasperated, half amused. Why are you sleeping here, not in bed, and without any clothes on? What am I going to do with you? But then, his smile vanished. Why is your body so hot? My head felt heavy and clouded, like it was stuffed with wet cotton. I did not answer. I felt the coolness of his palm against my forehead, pressing lightly. He frowned and quickly wrapped me in a blanket without another word, already changing his clothes. Then he returned with mine and began dressing me as well. I tried to push his hand away weakly. I can do it myself. Could you just bring me a cold towel? Even forming the words felt like a struggle, my tongue barely cooperating. But Landon brushed my hands aside with ease. How many times have I dressed you? And now you get shy because you are sick. After quickly dressing me, he carried me down to the car. As we waited in line at the hospital registration desk, a familiar voice broke the quiet. Landon, it was Kayla, eyes red, walking in from outside. Their eyes met, and for a moment, no words came. Landon's expression shifted, and he immediately left the line, rushing over to support her shoulders with concern. What happened? Are you hurt? She sniffled and said, I was just trying to cook some porridge and burned myself. I am such a klutz. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing a red, swollen patch on her arm. Landon's eyes instantly turned glassy. He lifted her arm and blew gently on the burn, his touch full of care. Do not do these things anymore. Just tell me what you want to eat. I will make sure you get it. Kayla nodded, her tears giving way to a smile. No one treats me as kindly as you do, Landon. He reached out and tousled her hair. Silly girl, if I do not take care of you, then who will? She beamed at him, sweet and charming, her eyes casually drifting past to the long bench where I sat, pale and forgotten. But Landon did not even glance at me. He queued up again. For her, he talked gently to her, asked if she was cold, if she needed anything, and then he left with her, never once looking back at me. That was the difference between a placeholder and the one who held his heart. No matter how convincing his performance, no matter how tender his touch, once Kayla appeared, I ceased to exist. I gave a bitter smile and forced myself to stand. My legs wobbled, but I made my way to the desk and registered myself, then walked, slowly, carefully, to the appropriate department. The fever was bad. I needed an 4 to bring it down. Alone, I waited in line for my medication, then dragged myself to the infusion area. I do not know when I fell asleep, but I was jolted awake by a small hand shaking my shoulder. A little boy stood beside me and asked, Miss, where is your boyfriend? You fell asleep and your blood started backing up. My mom called the nurse for you, but we are going home now. And you should not be alone like this. It is dangerous. I looked at him, grateful, and thanked both him and his mother. Then I forced myself to sit up straight and stared at the 4 bag above me. By the time the treatment was finished, it was already late afternoon. Still, Landon had not called, not even once. I stood up, trying to leave the hospital on my own, but the dizziness hit me hard, and I collapsed back onto the bench. I had no other choice. I called him. There was a long pause after I told him I was still at the hospital. Sorry, Stella, he said, his voice hesitant. Kayla was in so much pain. She could not handle the smell of disinfectant at the hospital, so I brought her home first. I was going to come right back to you. Before he could finish, I heard Kayla's playful voice in the background. Landon, are you done yet? I am starving over here. Although Landon quickly covered the receiver, his words still came through clearly enough for me to hear. Stella, it is not what you think. Just go home first. I will come back later and explain everything. I curled my lips into a faint smile. Honestly, I had no desire to hear any more of his so-called explanations. I already knew what they meant. Just another round of lies, wrapped in new excuses. So I said calmly, It is all right, Landon, I can handle things on my own. In this world, no one is so essential that you cannot live without them, especially not Landon. I hung up and ordered a delivery service to pick up my things. I returned home without drama, without tears, that night, as expected. Landon never came back. Later, deep into the night, while I was working on an urgent file for my boss, my phone lit up. It was a notification. Landon had forwarded one of Kayla's social media posts. The image showed two shadows leaning into one another affectionately, captioned with sentimental words. Who says no one waits for you in the same place? The one who truly cares will be there, no matter how far you stray, just turn around. They never left. I barely had time to react. I had just tapped a like before the post vanished, deleted. Moments later, another message popped up. This time from his alternate account. He had reposted the same thing again, clearly trying to hide it from my main account, but he had forgotten that I still followed him on the secondary one. I laughed quietly to myself and unfollowed both accounts. That night, without Landon beside me, I slept better than I had in weeks. I woke up feeling clear-headed and rested. The next morning, I arrived at the office right on time and handed in my resignation letter to my supervisor. She was reluctant to let me go, but when I explained I was leaving to prepare for marriage, she sighed and gave me a warm hug with her best wishes. Once the paperwork was finalized, my co-workers, who had been all moans and tears just moments ago, suddenly changed their tune when they learned I was leaving to get married. They demanded a farewell dinner. Of course, I agreed. I arranged a night out with food and karaoke. Fate must have had a strange sense of humor. Halfway through the night, I went to the restroom and ran into Kayla. She looked completely at ease, as if the awkwardness belonged only to me. With a gentle smile, she greeted me. What a coincidence. You are here too, Stella. I nodded politely, offering a faint smile, but I had no interest in small talk. I turned to walk back to my private room, but she stepped to the side, blocking my way again. Stella, do you dislike me? She asked, her tone still pleasant. I just wonder why. We are actually quite alike, you know, even down to how we eat beef. We both like it with vinegar. I froze slightly at her words. For a long time, I had wondered why Landon always dipped my beef in vinegar before handing it to me. He once told me it tasted better that way. I had never liked it, but I never questioned him too deeply. Now I understood, it had not been about me at all. He was simply carrying over the habits he had with her. My stomach turned, heavy and sour. I felt as if I might be sick, but Kayla was not finished. And Stella, she continued, almost sweetly, do you not think we look alike? That one sentence shattered everything I had been trying to hold together. The strength, the dignity, it all crumbled in that moment. I forced a smile and said, is that so? What an odd coincidence. I have somewhere to be. Excuse me. I brushed past her shoulder and walked away, my steps quick and unsteady. Back in the room, I felt chilled to the bone. I poured myself a glass of strong liquor just to feel some warmth return to my limbs. My colleagues were in high spirits and insisted I sing a song. I was just scrolling through the playlist when the door burst open with a loud bang. Landon stood there, framed in the doorway. His eyes swept across the room, registering the crowd inside, then narrowed as they landed on me. Burning with fury, I had barely opened my mouth to speak when he crossed the room in long, angry strides and grabbed me by the neck. Who is that man you were with? He shouted, his voice trembling with rage. I had never seen him this way before. Wild, violent, and frightening. My heart gave a sudden jolt. What man? I asked, my voice low but steady. What are you even talking about? Landon's eyes were bloodshot, his whole body tense with fury. No matter how many co-workers tried to pull him back, to hold him down, they could not get him to loosen his grip in the slightest. His voice was hoarse but full of rage. The man you dragged into the restroom to hurt Kayla. Tell me, who was he? I could hardly breathe. Desperate for air, I raised my hand and slapped Landon hard across the face. The blow stunned him just long enough for him to let go, but the fury rolling off his body only grew more intense. Protected by a few co-workers, I collapsed onto the sofa, coughing violently, struggling to catch my breath. It took several moments before I could speak clearly again. Landon, what are you talking about? Why would I take a man into a restroom? And why would I ever hurt Kayla? His voice cracked with disbelief and bitterness. If it was not you, then who? You are angry because I left you behind at the hospital to take care of her. You are upset I have not come home in days. So this is how you choose to get back at me. You are cruel, Lillian, truly cruel. A sharp ache twisted in my chest. I let out a bitter laugh and nodded slowly. If you are so sure it was me, why not call the police? Landon pressed his lips together, his silence louder than any words, the look in his eyes, pure disappointment, stabbed into me like icy needles. He finally spoke again. You are confident I would never report you. That is why you feel free to do as you please, is that it? I met his gaze, and the fury, the contempt, all rose in my chest like a storm. He had just tried to choke me. What was left that he would not do? Suddenly, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me out of the private room. My co-workers tried to block him. I shook my head at them with a faint smile, grateful for their concern. I am sorry, I told them. This is a personal matter. Please, do not let it spoil your evening. I will be back shortly. Only then did they step aside. Landon dragged me into another private room. Inside, Kayla sat trembling on the sofa, wrapped in Landon's jacket. A few of his close friends stood around her, comforting her with quiet words. Landon shoved me forward until I was standing right in front of her. His voice was sharp and commanding. Apologized to Kayla. You should be thankful she was not hurt any worse tonight. If she had been, I would have made sure you paid for it. My knees slammed against the hard edge of the sofa, sending a jolt of pain through my leg. I inhaled sharply. Kayla looked up with teary eyes, shaking her head. Landon, please, she said in a soft, trembling voice. This is not Stella's fault. Maybe I just had bad luck tonight. Then she lowered her head and sobbed, her cries soft and pitiful, like a wounded kitten. It made her seem helpless, innocent. But what exactly had I done wrong? A quiet laugh escaped my lips as I stood upright again. I am really curious, Landon, I said. There is an old saying, if you accuse someone of theft, you better catch them with the goods. You have nothing but your words, and that is supposed to be enough to label me guilty. I am sorry, I am not playing along with this farce. If you come after me again, I will call the police. We had known each other for 22 years. I had believed that by now, Landon would know my character well enough to not question it. But in front of Kayla, those 22 years counted for nothing. His bias, his blind favoritism, it was plain for all to see, and I was just the stand-in in this twisted love story. I did not return to the party. I went straight to the front desk, paid the bill, and later sent a message in our office group chat to apologize and say goodbye. Back home, I collapsed into the sofa. Every part of me drained. My mind drifted to a night 6 years ago, when Landon came to me drunk, asking for a place to stay. I helped him to the couch in my living room and sat across from him. Staring at his sharp features, his tousled hair, his quiet breathing, I do not know how long I watched him before his eyes suddenly opened. His gaze was intense, like fire, pulling me in. Do you like me? He asked. Before I could stop myself, I nodded. He smirked, then reached out, pulling me toward him, gripping the back of my head as he kissed me hard, hungrily. That was the night I became his girlfriend. At least in name. I had heard about Kayla before, but I had never met her. Back when they were together, I was drowning in final year coursework, buried in research papers and thesis deadlines. By the time I came up for air, their story had already reached the chapter where love had turned to heartbreak. I truly thought I had helped heal his wounds, that maybe I was the remedy he needed. But now, looking back on those 6 years, I realized what a joke it all had been. The next morning, I contacted a housekeeping company to help pack and sort through everything. Landon did not have much of his own. Since he lived next door, he never fully moved in after we started living together. He had only brought over his daily essentials. Now that it was time to return his belongings, everything fit neatly into one small cardboard box. I opened the door to his apartment, gathered every photo of us, every little gift and trinket I had once given him, and took them all back. I placed his keys gently on the table. As for my things, along with a few old pieces from that place, I had them packed up and shipped overseas. Once I was done and the real estate agent came to inspect the apartment, I remembered something else. One copy of the keys was still with Landon. I called him, once, twice, over and over, each time. He hung up without answering. Finally, he sent a text message. Unless you are ready to apologize and reflect, I do not want to hear anything from you. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Speechless. Then I simply called a locksmith and had the locks changed. With that done, the next morning I handed over the keys and boarded a plane, suitcase in hand, without looking back. This place, this home I had once felt so emotionally tied to. For the first time, leaving it felt effortless. Just before takeoff, my phone began to buzz with messages. It was my birthday. So many friends had sent their well wishes, messages full of warmth and hope poured in, wishing you endless happiness, peace, and a bright future. May you find love, wherever you are. I responded to each one by one, then turned off my phone. As the plane soared into the sky, I sat quietly by the window and thought, with so many blessings sent my way, how could I not be happy? By the time we landed, it was a beautiful London night. The city lights sparkled like jewels across the skyline. Dragging my suitcase behind me, I walked out of the terminal, and saw them right away. My parents and my brother stood waiting, eyes bright with joy. Dad, Mom, big brother. My brother instinctively reached for my suitcase while I ran straight into my mother's arms, to hold them again, to feel their warmth. It felt like a dream. My mother wrapped me in a tight embrace. I nearly burst into tears. You are finally home, she whispered, gently patting my back. I missed you more than words can say. Her voice, so soft and loving, made the guilt inside me deepen. 9 years ago, I had chosen to stay in the city for college. Chasing after a hazy dream of love, I ignored their pleading, convinced my heart knew what was best. They never forced me, they simply let me go. That goodbye had stretched into nearly a decade. Since then, we had only shared brief reunions during Christmas. To think of how they spent 9 years longing for me. I had been so selfish. Mom, I said quietly, I am not going anywhere again. From now on, I am staying here, with you and Dad. My parents looked at each other and smiled. That is all we ever wanted, my mother said, a family, together again. With laughter and light hearts, I slipped one arm through my father's and held my mother's hand as we walked out of the airport. But back in Deep Cove, Landon's apartment told a very different story. He sat on the floor, overwhelmed and shaken, dialing my number again and again. Every year on my birthday, Landon had a bracelet specially made for me at a boutique called Stars. He would always get a reminder to pick it up on the exact day. This year was no different. When he received the reminder, he suddenly remembered. It was my birthday. He looked at his phone and was struck by a jarring realization. I had not reached out to him once, not even today. A strange emptiness crept over him. It felt like something important had quietly slipped out of his life. After a moment, he typed out a message and hit send. Since it is your birthday, I will let it go. Just apologize to Kayla, and we can move on. The message sent. But instead of a red receipt, a red exclamation mark appeared on the screen. Then came a notification that made him freeze. You are not on the recipient's friend list. Please send a request to connect. Landon's hands trembled as he stared at those words. His face flushed with anger. He called me, but the phone was turned off. He called again, and again, more than 10 times. With each unanswered call, the panic inside him grew until it clawed at his chest. At last, unable to take it anymore, he brushed past Kayla's protests and jumped into his car, speeding home as fast as he could. When Landon arrived at my door, he discovered something unexpected. The key in his hand no longer worked. He stood there, puzzled and frustrated, unable to comprehend why I was so angry this time. In his mind, I was clearly the one who had done something wrong. He began pounding on the door again and again, hoping I would answer, but instead, it was a newlywed couple who opened it, looking at him with confusion, defeated. He trudged back to his own home, only to be met with yet another blow. Every single trace of me was gone. The matching mugs, the pair of house slippers we once shared. Even the little trinkets I had given him over the years. None of it remained, not even one. He stared blankly at the empty shelves, regret washing over him like a wave. He wished he had treasured those small things more, stored them away like memories he could hold on to. Kayla soon arrived and tried to comfort him. Maybe Stella just needed to get away for a bit. She is probably out to clear her head. Once she calms down, she will come back. But Landon shook his head miserably. You do not know her. Stella is not someone who acts without thinking. As he finished the sentence, he paused, a sudden thought flashing through his mind. The memory of that night at the karaoke bar. His eyes darkened as he turned to Kayla, suspicion sharp in his gaze. That night, at the KTV. Are you sure it was the man Stella brought who tried to assault you? Kayla flinched. I never said Stella brought him. I just said, she left, and then he came in. I did not mean to say, get out. His shout cut her off like a blade. Kayla ran from the house in tears, but Landon did not move. A second later, he smashed his phone against the wall, then slapped himself hard across the face. Twice. He had no idea what was happening in Haisha, the city I had flown to, after several nights of restless sleep. My body must have reached its limit. For the first time in days, I slept straight through until morning, without needing to adjust to the time difference. As I walked downstairs, I was greeted by a chorus of voices shouting happy birthday, louder and louder with each person. My arms overflowed with gifts, and my heart felt just as full. After breakfast, not sure what to do, I wandered into a nearby square and sat down to watch a group of kids playing with skateboards. The longer I watched, the more I wanted to try. One girl agreed to lend me hers. I stepped on, pushed too hard, and nearly flew off the board, just as I was about to fall. A pair of strong arms caught me firmly. Thank you, I gasped. When I looked up, I was stunned by the face above me. His features were unmistakably East Asian, yet his eyes were a striking shade of pale blue. The contrast was mesmerizing. More handsome than any celebrity I had ever seen, trying to learn how to skateboard. He asked, tilting his head slightly with a soft smile that made him seem instantly approachable. Without thinking, I nodded. He helped me regain my balance. Then flicked the edge of the board with his foot to position it just right. Before I could guess what he was doing, he stepped onto the board beside me and gave it a light push. The skateboard began to glide smoothly. Under his guidance, I managed 2 simple tricks. The nearby children clapped with excitement and cheered us on. By the time we stopped, my cheeks were flushed with heat. It was the first time I had ever been so close to a stranger. Maybe people were just more open and friendly here. Still feeling awkward, I was about to step away when my brother came jogging over, eyeing the two of us. You two look like you've known each other for years, he teased with a grin. Got along pretty fast, didn't you? Huh, I blinked, still confused. Then the man turned to me, extending his hand with a polite smile. Logan Hughes, it is a pleasure to meet you. I hope I did not leave a bad impression. Miss Stella. I stared at him in surprise. So this was Logan, my arranged fiancé. I stood there, momentarily frozen. My brother winked at me from the side, his hand still waiting. Embarrassed, I quickly reached out and shook his hand. Hello, Stella, he said warmly. He did not seem the least bit awkward. In fact, he asked right away, so, what would you like to do today for your birthday? Amusement park? Shopping? Movie? His calm, friendly tone made me feel at ease, the tension in my shoulders slowly melting away. Anything's fine, I said softly. He paused in thought, then said, all right, then I'll plan the day out. If we do everything, we might be home a little late. I blinked. Was that what anything's fine meant? But it had been so long since I had let myself relax, I did not bother to correct him. Maybe today, I thought, I would let someone else take the lead. When I planned a simple day at the amusement park, I never imagined my brother would insist on tagging along. Not only that, he brought an entire group of his friends with him, all noisy and restless. The moment we entered, they swarmed in like a pack of rowdy tourists. It felt as if a small hurricane had just swept through the park. But through it all, Logan stayed right by my side, steady and attentive, making sure I was safe and comfortable. It did not take long before I noticed something odd. Whenever Logan glanced at the group, they immediately backed off, as though his gaze alone was enough to send them scattering. They might have been loud and wild, but around Logan, they were on their best behavior. After 2 hours of games and rides, Logan must have sensed my growing boredom. Without a word, he took my hand and led me away, leaving the crowd behind. After lunch, we decided to see a movie. Unfortunately, luck was not on our side. A misbehaving child sat behind us, kicking my seat non-stop. At first, Logan turned around and, with great politeness, asked the parent to calm the child, but the parent just nodded distractedly and went right back to ignoring everything. Logan's lips curved into a faint, amused smile. A few minutes later, he lifted a hand and waved, at no one in particular. Then, after a short pause, he got up and quietly switched seats, placing himself just one chair away from the child. To my surprise, he began chatting animatedly with the empty seat beside him. I had no idea what he was saying, but 5 minutes later, the child burst into tears and clung to his mother, insisting he did not want to stay in the theater any longer. I tried my best not to laugh, but it was hopeless. I ended up missing half the movie, too busy stifling giggles. As we left, Logan pulled his coat tighter around him and glanced down at my expression. "You can laugh," he said with a grin. "Holding it in will only make your stomach hurt." I shaped a silent word with my lips. Legend. After picking up a few things from the shop, the sky had already turned dark. I assumed Logan would drive me home, but to my surprise, he took a turn and headed toward the beach. There, my brother and his friends had set up a barbecue pit and pitched several tents. Everyone was gathered around, chatting, laughing, and grilling food. The whole scene was warm and glowing with energy. When the moon rose high above, they brought out rows of fireworks, lighting them one by one in a blur of sparks and color. As the sky lit up with dazzling light, my brother nudged me gently and said, "Make a wish." Logan said cake is too cliché. Fireworks are bold and brilliant, closer to the stars. I turned to look at Logan and gave him a grateful smile. Then I closed my eyes and made a wish beneath the glittering sky. When it was time to go, I told Logan not to bother driving me home. He had been with me the entire day. He deserved to rest. On the ride back, I sat in my brother's car, still thinking about how all his friends had shown such quiet respect toward Logan. Curious, I finally asked him why. My brother went quiet for a moment before answering. Logan lost his parents early. They left behind a massive company, and every relative turned into a vulture, trying to claim a piece of it. At the time, Logan was just a kid, and his grandfather, Mr. Hughes, was already old and frail. The two of them held the family business together with sheer grit. As Logan got older, he became sharper, tougher. His decisions were quick and merciless. He crushed every greedy hand that reached for what was his. That reputation stuck. Everyone knows not to cross him. Honestly, most of the guys today are terrified of him. But not me, he added with a chuckle. I am the exception. That is why I trust him with my sister. I laughed and rolled my eyes. You, the exception. I think he just lets you hang around because you are shameless. We bickered and teased each other all the way home, but just as the car slowed near our street, a figure darted out in front of us. My brother slammed on the brakes with a loud screech. What the hell? Who's the idiot trying to get themselves killed? He yanked off his seatbelt, flung the car door open, and stormed out, still reeling from the scare. I leaned forward, peering through the windshield, and froze. Standing in the headlights was Landon, his eyes filled with sorrow. "Stella," he said softly. My brother halted, glanced back at me, and gave me a questioning look, but all I felt was a wave of exhaustion crashing over me, like everything joyful about the day had been wiped away in an instant. I stepped out of the car. Landon staggered forward, clearly unsteady on his feet, reaching out as if he wanted to hold me, but before he could get any closer, my brother stepped in between us, firmly blocking his path. "Hey, Landon, right, you show up at our house without even calling. If you really had something to say, you could have waited inside." But Landon ignored him. His eyes never left me. They were wide, almost frantic, locked onto mine as he said in a hoarse voice, "Stella, I was afraid you would not see me. I did not dare go in." I stared at him, puzzled. If he had once treated me like a placeholder, it might have made sense that he felt a bit of guilt, maybe even regret. But Kayla was back now. She had always been the one he cared about. I had seen it clearly in his eyes. So what was he doing here, flying across the ocean just to find me? "I did not want to see you," I said flatly. "And yet, here you are. Since you are already here, then say whatever you came to say, and leave." At my words, a single tear slipped from the corner of Landon's eye. "Stella, Do not talk to me like this, he whispered. You never spoke to me this way before. He brought up the past. But all it did was make my heart grow colder. That was then, I said, and this is now. He looked startled, like he was struggling to understand what was happening. For a moment, he simply stood there, frozen. Then, as if trying to rewind time, he gave me the same warm smile he used to wear when things were still good between us. Stella, I know, he said gently, you are still angry. I am sorry. All right, that day, it was my fault. I should never have laid a hand on you. No matter what happened, that was wrong. He paused, then added, there is nothing between me and Kayla, nothing at all. I only see her as a friend now, and if you do not like it, I will cut all contact with her, completely. As he spoke, he did not seem to notice my brother's face darkening with fury. Then, without warning, Landon pulled a small red velvet box from his pocket and suddenly dropped to one knee in front of me. Stella, he said, lifting the lid to reveal a diamond ring. You used to complain I always gave you the same thing, year after year, bracelets with no thought behind them, but I listened this time. I remembered what you liked. I picked the one you always pointed at. Stella, marry me, please. Before I could react, my brother slapped the ring out of his hand with a loud smack. Landon, you have got to be kidding me, he snapped. You dared to cheat on my little sister, the girl our whole family spoiled and protected, and then you had the nerve to raise a hand to her. I did not know before, and that was one thing. But now, you have the audacity to show up here and propose like nothing happened. I swear, I will beat the life out of you right now. No sooner had the words left his mouth than my brother's fist connected squarely with Landon's face. His eye began to swell almost immediately, red and bruised. I made no move to stop him. If Landon had the guts to come find me, then he should have been prepared for the consequences. But even after the punch, my brother was not finished. He spat at Landon's feet. Marry my sister. You, look at yourself. You are not even worthy to breathe the same air as her. Let me make one thing clear. My sister is getting married, and her fiancé is miles ahead of you in every single way. You are not even close. So do yourself a favor and stay away. If I ever see you near her again, I will break more than just your face. The mention of my upcoming marriage must have hit a nerve. Landon, who had just been letting the insults wash over him, suddenly froze. His eyes widened in disbelief, and he looked at me like he had just been slapped. You are getting married? He asked, stunned. No. I do not believe it. You love me. Even when I refused to make things public, you never walked away. You stayed. Stella, do not throw your life away just to spite me. Do not marry someone you do not love. His words made me laugh, not because they were funny, but because they were absurd. I looked at him, this man who had once meant so much to me, and said, without hesitation, Landon, if there is anyone in this world I do not love, it is you. No, actually, I should say this more clearly. From the moment I found out I was just a stand-in, the moment I saw your attic walls covered in pictures of you and Kayla, you became the one person I could never, ever love again. As my words sank in, Landon's face turned ghostly pale. You know about that, he murmured, voice trembling. As I turned to leave, Landon rushed forward again, grabbing my hand with trembling desperation. Stella, please do not go, he pleaded, his voice cracking. Just listen to me. It is not what you think. I admit, I used to believe I could not let go of Kayla, but in the days since you left, I finally realized that the one I truly cannot let go of is you. He looked completely unraveled. You do not understand. When I found out you had moved out and sold the apartment, I panicked. I could not eat. I could not sleep. I asked around and talked to so many people, just to get your brother's number. Stella, please, give me one more chance. Let me make things right. I am begging you. I shook off his hand, a cold laugh slipping from my lips as a memory suddenly surfaced. The post he had once shared on social media. I looked him straight in the eye. Landon, no one waits forever. No one, except you and Kayla. His face turned pale. He stood there, speechless, as if I had knocked the wind from him. Without another glance, I took my brother's arm and turned to leave. As we walked past Landon, my brother gave him 2 swift kicks, his frustration bursting out with each step. When we got home, my parents were waiting anxiously by the door. Their worried eyes met mine, and I knew I could not hide it anymore, so I sat down and told them everything that had happened over the years in Haisha. My mother wrapped me in a tight embrace, her arms full of warmth and sorrow. She did not say much, just held me and comforted me for a long while. I thought I had made myself clear to Landon that night. I truly believed he would finally leave me alone, but the next morning, he was outside our gate again. Logan had arrived with a bouquet of flowers, only to be blocked by Landon. Not long after, a servant rushed in, breathless. "Young Master Logan is fighting someone at the gate," they said. We hurried outside in a panic. What we saw was not a fight. It was a one-sided beating. Logan was pounding Landon with fierce, calculated blows. "Oh no," my brother gasped, slapping his leg. "Logan knows Muay Thai. His punches are no joke." My heart was in my throat. I rushed forward, terrified Logan would end up in serious trouble because of me. I shouted twice, "Logan, stop!" But he did not stop. With no other choice, I threw myself at him from behind and wrapped my arms around his waist. Only then did he freeze and pull back. When I turned to look at Landon, he was barely recognizable. Bruised, blooded, and slumped over. I immediately called for an ambulance. Paramedics arrived quickly and took him to the hospital. Later, we learned the full story from Logan's assistant. Logan had not responded to Landon's taunts at first. He tried to ignore him, but then Landon said something vile. Something about how he had slept with me for 6 years, how I was already used up and worth nothing. That was what pushed Logan over the edge. He lost control and beat him senseless. When I heard this, I was so touched I could hardly speak. That evening, I crafted a small handmade gift and gave it to Logan. To my surprise, he hung it around his neck like a treasured keepsake. 2 days before the wedding, I received an unexpected call from Kayla. She was no longer pretending to be sweet and delicate. The moment I answered, she exploded. "Stella, you filthy witch. Where are you hiding Landon? Bring him back right now. If this keeps going, his whole company is going to collapse. You are a curse." Hearing that Landon had not returned home, a trace of worry stirred in my chest. I immediately told Logan about it. Logan smiled and gently told me not to worry. He said, "Since they love being the center of attention so much, let them stay and witness our wedding." My brother was caught off guard. He blinked and asked instinctively, "Why would they cause a scene?" Meanwhile, Landon and Kayla were surrounded by more than a dozen security guards, forming a tight circle that refused to let them leave. Landon's eyes were bloodshot as he stood and watched us from beginning to end. He saw us exchange rings. He listened as we recited our vows. He stood frozen as we shared a deep, joyful kiss in front of all our guests. He watched, and his whole body trembled. The glasses of wine in front of him disappeared one by one down his throat. As the ceremony drew to a close, Logan and I walked toward them, each of us holding a glass of champagne. By then, Landon's face was soaked in tears. He looked up at me, his voice hoarse and slurred, his nose running uncontrollably. "Stella," he cried, "if I had proposed earlier, would we have avoided all this? I made a mistake, I really did." I lifted my glass toward him and said with a calm smile, "To you, thanks for never marrying me, all these years." Landon broke down completely, his sobs growing louder. Then I turned to Kayla. Her face looked no better than Landon's, and on her cheek was a fresh, red slap mark. I blinked, surprised. "Did Landon hit you?" I truly did not mean it in a mocking way, but Kayla flew into a rage. "Feeling proud of yourself now, are you, Stella?" she screamed. "Well, let me tell you something. Life is not always smooth sailing. Your bad days will come too. Just wait." I sighed and turned away. Talking to her felt like trying to hold a conversation with a wall. 1 month later, my brother brought it up again as gossip over dinner. He said that after the wedding, Landon drank himself into a stupor and ended up hitting Kayla. She had been pregnant and lost the baby. Then, even after that, Landon refused to marry her. Kayla, consumed by anger and resentment, began slipping drugs into his meals every day. Landon's health declined quickly. Eventually, one day, he collapsed and lost the use of his legs, but Kayla was not done. She switched to a different drug and poisoned him again. This time, she took his voice. That was when the Steele family got involved. They discovered everything and launched an investigation. when the truth came out, they had Kayla arrested. But the family's anger had not been satisfied. They bribed people in prison to make sure Kayla was punished behind bars. Still, none of it could undo what had already happened. Landon, for the rest of his life, would remain a broken man. After hearing all this, I turned to Logan with a curious thought. Logan, I asked, do you think I am anything like Kayla? He looked at me in complete surprise. You and Kayla, not in the slightest. You are nothing alike. Why would you ask that? I smiled faintly and said, no reason, because the truth is, when someone truly loves you, they see you as one of a kind, irreplaceable. But when someone does not love you, they will always find excuses to say, you are just like someone else. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so feel free to share your opinions. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories. We'll see you in the next video.